Hello, my dear friends. Tonight, let us take a long, quiet journey into the distant world of old Russia. As you settle down and let your body grow soft and still, allow this story to unfold slowly, like a calm winter breeze moving through an ancient forest. Imagine a land where tall pine trees stretch endlessly toward a pale sky, where rivers sleep under thick ice, and where the world moves in slow, patient rhythms shaped by long seasons of cold and short moments of warmth. This is the Russia of the past, a place beautiful, demanding, and deeply human. As you breathe gently, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a wide, snowy field. The air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and wood smoke. Snow lies deep around your feet, soft and untouched. There are no loud sounds here, only the distant creak of trees bending under winter's weight. This quiet, this stillness, was a familiar companion to the people who lived in old Russia. Winters were long, sometimes half the year, sometimes even more, and the cold was not gentle. It pushed into homes, into clothing, even into the bones of the people who lived here. The land demanded patience, resilience, and quiet strength. In those winter months, daily life slowed to a careful pace. Nothing grew beneath the snow. Travel was difficult, and the world felt smaller, wrapped in white silence. Families stayed close together inside their wooden homes, saving what they had, using supplies carefully, keeping the fire alive day after day. Every night, as the wind whispered around the corners of their roofs, people hoped the warmth of their stove would last until morning. Imagine that steady crackle of fire, glowing softly against the walls, casting gentle shadows around the room. As the cold air drifts in your imagination, let it settle quietly. And now let us walk slowly into a small village in old Russia. The sun is just beginning to rise, its light pale and weak as it touches the tops of wooden roofs. Smoke curls from chimneys, rising slowly into the sky. There is no rush, no hurry, only the calm rhythm of a community beginning another day. Work starts early, even in winter. Men step outside to chop wood, their breath forming clouds in the air. Women head to the well, carrying wooden buckets, their hands red from the cold. Children help with chores, bundled in layers of rough, warm cloth. Nothing is easy here. Every task requires effort. Carrying water through snow, grinding grain by hand, gathering wood from the forest, milking animals in the cold. All of it takes strength and patience. But life has a steady rhythm, a softness beneath the struggle. People know their tasks. They take each day as it comes. There is beauty in this simple routine, the kind of beauty that comes from living close to the land. Now imagine opening the door of one of these wooden homes. The room is dim and warm, filled with the scent of smoke, bread, and pine. Almost all of life happens inside this one room. A large clay oven sits in the center, glowing softly. It heats the home, cooks the food, dries clothing, and at night becomes a warm sleeping place for children. Wooden benches line the walls, and a small icon of a saint hangs high in the corner, with a candle flickering gently in front of it. The light from the fire dances quietly across the wooden beams, filling the room with a peaceful orange glow. This home is simple, yet full of warmth. Families eat together, talk together, laugh together, and rest together, all in this small shared space. Even though life is difficult, moments like these carry a deep sense of comfort. The gentle crackle of fire, the soft voices of family, the warm smell of fresh bread, all of it creates a calmness that wraps around you like a blanket. Take a slow breath. Feel this warm room around you. Feel how the cold winter outside makes the inside feel even more peaceful. And now, without breaking the flow, let us drift deeper into this world. Imagine stepping back into the snowy village. moving slowly past wooden fences and frozen fields. People here lived very close to nature. They depended on the land for everything: food, warmth, shelter. And because the land was unpredictable, people learned to work together. Villagers shared tools, shared food, shared labor. They helped one another build homes, repair roofs, and gather wood before winter arrived. Life was too hard to live alone. As you picture these scenes, let your mind rest gently on the simplicity of this world. There were no machines, no noise, no rush, only quiet footsteps in the snow, the soft thud of an axe against wood, the distant lowing of cattle sheltered in barns. Life moved like a slow heartbeat, steady and calm. And now, as the night grows quiet in your imagination, you can let yourself drift further into this soft, snowy world, knowing that we will continue our journey gently, step by step, never rushing, never disturbing your peace. As we drift deeper into this quiet world of old Russia, imagine that the long winter morning is slowly unfolding around you. The sky has turned a pale silver, as if the sun is trying gently, almost shyly, to brighten the land. But the light stays soft like a thin blanket stretched across the clouds. There is no hurry in this world, no sharp noise, no sudden movement. Everything moves gently, as though the land itself breathes slowly. Now imagine walking along a narrow, snow-covered path leading toward the small wooden church at the center of the village. In old Russia, faith was not just a part of life. It was woven into the rhythm of each day. Even the simplest homes had a tiny sacred corner, and the church stood like a calm guardian over the village. Its wooden walls are old and dark, warmed by many years of candles and prayers. When you step inside, the air changes. It feels still, peaceful, touched with quiet devotion. You see flickering lamps glowing softly before painted icons, saints with gentle eyes, ancient faces surrounded by halos of gold. The walls are dim, the floor creaks softly under your feet, and the scent of melted wax lingers in the air. A priest speaks in a slow, low voice, his words rolling like a river. Calm, steady, soothing. Faith gave people comfort here. It softened the harshness of winter. It offered hope when the land felt impossible and strength when work was heavy. People believed that the saints watched over them, that blessings protected the home, that prayers kept sickness away. And whether it was true or not, the belief itself warmed their hearts like a small fire in a dark night. Step outside with me again, John, and feel the cold air touch your face. Soft, sharp, but strangely refreshing. The villagers walk back to their homes now. Some hold small candles. Some wrap scarves more tightly around their heads as the wind begins to rise. A few snowflakes drift lazily through the air, falling with a gentle silence. The entire village seems to exhale at once, settling into its familiar rhythm. Let us imagine entering another home now, this one belonging to a family of farmers. The room smells faintly of smoke, bread, and wool. A pot simmers over the fire, sending warm steam into the air. Children sit nearby, weaving small toys from straw. Their hands move slowly, carefully as they chat quietly. The mother kneads dough at a small wooden table, her movements calm and practiced, the rhythm almost like a lullaby. The father sits by the window, repairing a broken tool, while occasionally glancing outside to watch the falling snow. These small scenes, ordinary, gentle, formed the heart of life in old Russia. People spent much of their time preparing for the future, fixing what broke, saving what they could, doing small tasks that made survival possible. There is something soothing in their simplicity. No rushing, no endless noise, No screens or distractions. Just life lived slowly, patiently, with stillness between each breath. Imagine now sitting on a wooden bench near the fire. The warmth reaches your hands. You hear the quiet crackle of the flames. It feels safe. It feels peaceful. You could stay here all evening, listening to the soft chatter of the family and the whisper of the wind outside. As the day continues, the clouds thicken. Snow begins to fall more steadily. The village grows quieter. Footsteps fade. Doors close. Animals settle into their barns, their warm breath turning to mist in the cold air. And inside each home, families gather near the oven, talking softly, sharing stories, or simply resting after a long day. This slow end to the day was a comfort for many. After hours of hard work, chopping wood, hauling water, caring for animals, people found relief in the quiet moments. They cherished them, John, because life here was not easy. Every small comfort mattered. As the snow settles deeper around the village and the world outside disappears into white silence, the only sound that remains is the steady, gentle heartbeat of the fire, soft and warm, like a lullaby guiding the night. Let this calmness wash over you, Mary John. Let the quiet of old Russia settle in your mind, and when you're ready, we will drift even deeper into this peaceful world. Imagine the village now. Late evening is settling in. The sky above has turned a deep, quiet blue, almost like velvet spread across the heavens. The last bit of daylight lingers softly at the edge of the horizon, fading slowly, peacefully. There is no rush here. Even the sun seems to set with calmness, as though it, too, understands the rhythm of this old world. The snow outside reflects the dim light, glowing faintly like a soft white blanket stretched across the earth. The world looks cold, but strangely gentle. There are no loud sounds, no engines, no traffic, just the occasional creak of wooden fences, the distant bark of a dog, or the rustle of the wind brushing past empty trees. Now imagine walking past the small wooden houses. Every window glows with a warm orange light from the oven inside. Each home looks like a tiny island of warmth floating in a frozen sea. You can almost feel the comfort radiating from them. Inside one of these houses, an elderly woman sits near the fire. Her hands, wrinkled yet steady, move gracefully as she knits a thick woolen shawl. The yarn slides smoothly between her fingers. She hums a quiet tune, an old Russian lullaby passed down through generations. The sound is soft, heartfelt, almost magical in the silence of the night. Near her, a young girl listens, resting her head on her grandmother's lap. The warmth of the fire makes her eyelids heavy. The lullaby surrounds the room like a warm blanket, soothing and timeless. These songs were more than melodies. They were memories, prayers, comfort, and history woven together. Step back outside with me, John. Take a slow breath in the cold air. Feel how crisp it is, how clean. Each breath feels like it clears the mind a little more. Walk toward the barn now, where the farmer tends to the animals for the night. Inside, the air is thick with the warm smell of hay. Cows shift slowly, their heavy breaths forming clouds in the cold. The farmer pats them calmly, speaks to them in a soft voice, and checks that they are warm enough for the night. In old Russia, animals were part of the family, essential for survival, and caring for them was done with love and responsibility. After finishing his work, The farmer stands at the barn door for a moment, looking out at the snow-covered fields. There is something beautiful and lonely about this land at night. Endless white stretching into darkness, quiet and still. Yet people here were never afraid of the night. They knew it well. They had lived with it for centuries, trusting the cycle of time, believing that dawn always returns. Now imagine returning to the house. The door opens with a soft creak. Warm air touches your face, and the smell of dinner fills the room. The family sits together around a wooden table. They eat slowly, simple food like baked potatoes, soup, bread, but with gratitude. There is laughter, low conversation, small jokes shared among tired but happy faces. The fire crackles behind them, casting shadows on the walls that dance gently like tiny spirits of light. This togetherness, this warmth, this slow, peaceful ending of the day, this was the heart of life in old Russia. Outside, the wind begins to whisper through the trees. Snow drifts softly from the sky, layer by layer covering roofs and paths and fences. The village becomes quieter, deeper, almost dreamlike. As the night grows colder, families wrap themselves in thick blankets. Children fall asleep quickly, their cheeks flushed from warmth. Adults sit for a little while longer, watching the fire, letting their minds rest after a long day. The flames move gently, rising and falling in a slow, comforting rhythm, like breathing, and then gradually the whole village drifts into sleep. A deep sleep, a peaceful sleep, a sleep wrapped in snow, silence, and ancient calm. Let this soft winter night settle inside you too. Let its quietness soothe your thoughts. Let its warmth rest on your heart. As the night settles deeper over old Russia, imagine yourself stepping outside once more. The snow beneath your feet feels soft and slightly crunchy, and the air is icy but beautifully clean. The village is almost completely silent now. Chimneys release thin streams of smoke that rise slowly into the dark sky, fading gently into the cold air. Above you, the stars are brighter than anything you see in modern life. They shine like tiny crystals scattered across endless darkness. In old Russia, people often looked up at these stars for guidance, comfort, and dreams. They believed the night sky carried stories of ancestors, spirits, seasons, and fate. And in this moment, as you look up, you can understand why. The sky feels alive, calm, eternal. Walk with me slowly toward the edge of the village. Beyond the last house, the fields stretch far into the distance, white and silent. The forest, dark and ancient, stands like a sleeping giant on the horizon. Its tall trees sway gently as the wind passes through them, whispering secrets only nature understands. Many centuries ago, Russians believed these forests held protective spirits, not frightening ones, but quiet guardians who watched over travelers, hunters, and lonely wanderers in the deep cold. As you listen to the rustling leaves, it almost feels like the forest is breathing, steady and slow, as if giving you permission to step closer. But instead of going into the woods, you turn back toward the village, toward warmth, toward light, toward safety. Inside a nearby home, a very different scene is unfolding. This is the house of a blacksmith, a hard-working man who shapes iron with fire. Even at night, a faint glow shines through the cracks of his workshop. Not because he's still working, but because the metal he heated earlier is still cooling slowly. Step in quietly with me. The air inside smells of ash, burned wood, and warm iron. It's not unpleasant, just earthy and real. Tools hang neatly on the walls, each one crafted by hand. In old Russia, nothing was wasted. Every tool had purpose. Every object carried the mark of effort and patience. The blacksmith himself sits on a stool near the dying fire. His heavy hands rest on his knees, his face tired but peaceful. He watches the embers fading into a soft orange glow. This is his moment of rest, a moment he rarely gets during the busy days of forging, fixing, and shaping metal for the whole village. Nearby, his young son sleeps curled up in a corner on a straw bed, wrapped in a thick wool blanket. The firelight flickers on his face, making his dreams look warm and gentle. Perhaps he dreams of becoming strong like his father, learning the craft, or maybe of simple things, sledding in the snow, running through fields, laughing with friends. Life was difficult in old Russia, but childhood still had small joys hidden between the hardships. As you leave the blacksmith's home, listen closely. The wind has softened. The whole village feels as if it has settled into a deeper, quieter sleep. Lamps have been extinguished. Doors have been locked. Fires burn low. Yet somewhere in the distance you hear a soft melody. Follow it gently. It's coming from a small wooden chapel at the center of the village. Its roof is covered in snow, and a single candle glows through the tiny window. Inside, a lone priest sits in front of an icon, whispering an evening prayer. His voice is slow, steady, almost like a lullaby. Old Russian prayers were never rushed. They were sung slowly, as if the words themselves were floating in the air, seeking a place to settle. The candle flickers gently, casting long shadows on the wooden walls. The priest's breath forms small clouds as he speaks, because even indoors, the cold is never fully gone. But he doesn't mind. For him, the silence of night is sacred. It's a time to reflect, a time to hope, a time to thank the heavens for another day survived in this harsh land. You stand quietly at the doorway listening, not intruding, just absorbing the calm, letting the soft voice and warm candlelight ease your thoughts. When he finishes, the priest bows his head and smiles gently at the icon. Then he extinguishes the candle. The chapel, too, joins the village in sleep. Step outside again. Now the night feels even deeper, even quieter, even softer. As you step away from the quiet chapel, the village feels almost dreamlike now. Every sound has softened, every shadow has stretched, and the cold night wraps around you like a slow, sleepy blanket. The moon sits high above the snowy fields, glowing so bright that the snow looks almost blue beneath it. Calm, untouched, endless. Let's walk slowly toward the river, John. The path is narrow, and the snow along it has been pressed down by the footsteps of villagers who passed by earlier in the day. Now, in the stillness of night, it feels as though these footprints are the only signs that life exists here at all. As you reach the riverbank, listen closely. The river hasn't frozen completely yet. Under a thin layer of ice, water still flows. Gentle, slow, whispering stories as it moves. In old Russia, people often believed rivers carried memories of seasons, of families, of prayers whispered on winter nights. And in this moment, as you stand here, the sound of flowing water feels like a soft lullaby written by nature itself. Kneel down for a moment. Place your hand over the cold surface of the ice. You can feel the life beneath it. Quiet, steady, patient. Across the river you see a small wooden mill. It stands silent now, its wheel frozen in place, covered in frost that sparkles under the moonlight. During the day this mill is bustling, the grinding of grain, the smell of flour, the laughter of workers. But at night it becomes something else, something peaceful, something that watches over the river like an old guardian. Let's walk around slowly to the back of the mill. There you find a simple wooden shed. Inside, the miller's wife is still awake. A small oil lamp flickers beside her as she sits on a low stool, patching a warm wool coat. Her hands move slowly, patiently, stitching each tier with care. In old Russia, clothes were precious. Every piece was repaired again and again, lovingly passed from one generation to another. Her face is tired but peaceful. Sometimes the quietest moments are the most comforting ones. She hums softly to herself, a tune so gentle that it blends with the crackling of the tiny fire beside her. Not far away, her youngest daughter sleeps in a basket filled with wool. Her little fingers curl softly as she dreams. Her breath rises and falls in the slow rhythm of a world that knows nothing of hurry, nothing of noise, nothing of modern weight. Let's leave them undisturbed. Outside again, the cold air greets you with a soft kiss. A slow wind drifts through the trees, carrying faint scents of pine, smoke, and winter earth. Walk with me toward the far end of the village, toward the fields that will bloom once the harsh winter ends. In old Russia, farmers worked from sunrise to sunset, their hands cracked from the cold, their bodies tired from the soil. But even in winter, when the ground slept, farmers never stopped planning. Dreams of spring lived quietly inside their hearts. As you arrive near a simple barn, you hear a faint sound, almost like a soft shuffle. Inside the barn, a few animals shift in their sleep. The horses breathe deeply, their warm breath creating small clouds in the dim light. The cows lie down quietly, chewing slowly as they drift in and out of rest. A single lantern hangs near the door, glowing dimly. It casts a golden softness on the straw floor, making the whole space feel warm and safe. Farmers would often check on their animals before sleeping, making sure they were fed and comfortable. Tonight everything is calm, everything is settled. Stand here for a moment, John. Breathe with the rhythm of the barn. Slow, steady, peaceful. The village, the river, the chapel, the mill. All of old Russia is sinking deeper into silence now. This is a world where nights were long, but gentle, where hardships existed, but so did small pockets of comfort and tenderness. As you exhale, feel the softness of the night blending with your own thoughts. The night in old Russia grows deeper now, as if the sky itself is slowly falling asleep. Above you, the stars shine like tiny silver needles stitched carefully into a blanket of soft darkness. Their glow is steady, calm, untouched by time. In these quiet villages, people often looked up at the stars to understand seasons, to guide their travel, or just to ease their restless thoughts. Walk with me toward the far edge of the village where the houses become fewer, and the land opens wide like an endless sigh. The snow here lies untouched, smooth and pale, reflecting the moonlight in a soft shimmer. Each step you take makes a gentle crunch, a rhythm that feels almost musical in the silence. Ahead, you see a small wooden house, or rather a hut. Its roof is covered with thick layers of snow, and a little smoke rises from the chimney, curling into the night. This is the home of a woodcutter, someone who spends long days in the forest, gathering logs to warm homes, cook meals, and keep families safe from winter's harsh breath. Let's step closer. The door is slightly open, letting a thin line of warm light spill onto the snow. Inside, the woodcutter sits on a low bench. His clothes are worn and patched, his boots heavy with dried mud, and his beard coated with tiny crystals of melted frost. Yet his expression is peaceful, soft, almost sleepy. He sharpens his axe slowly, not with urgency, but with the calm routine of someone who has done this every night for decades. Scrape, pause, scrape. The sound is steady, grounding, and strangely soothing. By the fire, his eldest daughter prepares tea. She pours hot water into a clay cup, the steam rising like a quiet prayer into the warm air. Tea in old Russia was simple, just herbs gathered from the forests in the summer. Chamomile, mint, maybe tiny dried berries. Tonight, the scent fills the small room with a gentle sweetness that makes your shoulders relax without even trying. On the other side of the room, the woodcutter's mother sits wrapped in a thick shawl. Her hands are steady as she spins raw wool into thread. The spindle turns in slow circles, each rotation calm enough to lull even the most restless mind to sleep. In families like this, every generation had a role, and every role had a rhythm, a kind of music made from daily life. The walls of the hut are decorated with simple things: dried herbs tied in bundles, carved wooden spoons, a woven basket filled with apples from the last harvest. Nothing fancy, nothing unnecessary. Life here was hard, John, but also simple in a way that feels strangely comforting. Let's step outside again. The moment you leave the warm hut, the cold air brushes against your face like a soft whisper. Around you, the forest stands tall and dark, but not frightening. The trees sway gently in the wind, making a quiet shh sound, as if nature itself is reminding you to relax, to breathe, to slow down, to slow. Walk with me into the forest just a little. The snow beneath the trees is thinner, and you can see the shapes of roots, fallen branches, and tiny footprints left by forest animals. A fox, perhaps, or a rabbit. In old Russia, forests were alive with creatures that the villagers rarely saw, but always felt nearby. The deeper you walk, the quieter everything becomes. Not silent, just softer. The branches above filter the moonlight into thin silver beams that fall across the path. The wind rustles through the pine needles, releasing a cool, clean smell, so crisp that it almost clears your mind instantly. Imagine living in a world where nights like this were normal, where the forest was both a challenge and a companion, where people found comfort not in noise but in nature's slow heartbeat. Stand here for a moment, Jan. Let the hush of the forest settle inside you. Let it calm the corners of your mind that still feel awake. The forest begins to fade behind us now, as we walk back toward the small village. The snow-covered roofs, the soft lights glowing through tiny windows, and the quiet shapes of people settling into their nightly routines. Everything looks peaceful, almost dreamlike. In old Russia, night was a time for slow conversations, simple tasks, and gentle rituals that prepared the mind for rest. Families often gathered around a single source of warmth, usually a large clay stove called a pechka. And now, John, let's step into one such home, where the soft orange glow of firelight fills the room like a warm embrace. Inside, the air smells of baking bread, melting wax and fresh hay spread beneath wooden beds. A mother sits near the stove, brushing her child's hair with long, patient strokes. Each movement is slow enough to ease even your heartbeat. The child, wrapped in a thick wool tunic, leans into her touch, eyes fluttering with sleep. In the corner, the father mends a leather boot. His hands move with the ease of long practice. Stitch, pull, pause, stitch, pull, pause. It's a rhythm older than memory, passed from one generation to the next. You notice something simple but meaningful. No one rushes. No one speaks loudly. Night in old Russia was a world of softness. Let's move a little closer to the stove, the heart of every home. The clay surface holds heat for hours, keeping the entire room warm through the freezing night. Some families even slept on top of it, believing the warmth healed aches and protected them from illness. A grandmother rests there now, wrapped in thick blankets, humming an old lullaby under her breath. A tune so gentle it could lull the snow itself into stillness. Above the stove hangs a small wooden icon. Nothing flashy, just a single painted face lit by the trembling glow of a candle. For many families, these icons offered a sense of comfort, a reminder that they were watched over, even in the darkest winter nights. As the candle flickers, its light dances slowly across the walls, moving like the soft breathing of the house itself. Now listen closely outside the window. The village is falling silent. The dogs curl into balls of fur. The chickens settle on their roosts. And even the wind seems to slow down, brushing gently against the wooden walls. Night after night, this quiet routine repeated itself. A small meal, a little work, a shared moment of calm, and then sleep. But before sleep came something special, something deeply human. Stories. People in old Russia loved ending their day with tales told softly by firelight. Stories of brave wanderers, magical forests, talking wolves, and old spirits that protected the land. These stories weren't meant to frighten. They were meant to soothe, to teach, and to remind families of their place in the wide, mysterious world. Tonight, a grandfather begins one such tale. His voice is slow and deep. The children gather close. The adults listen quietly, hands resting in their laps. The flames in the stove glow brighter, as if listening too. He speaks of a traveler lost in the winter woods, of a warm light that guided him home, and of the lesson that even in the coldest nights kindness can be found. As he speaks, the room seems to sway gently, like it's breathing along with him. And for a moment the stories make the hard, harsh world outside disappear. A calmness settles over the room. A calmness settles over you too, like a warm blanket being tucked around your shoulders. When the story ends, no one moves quickly. They sit for another moment, letting the silence land softly around them, letting the warmth sink into their bones, letting sleep come naturally. The candle flickers once more, and the house drifts deeper into quiet. As the quiet deepens across the village, another part of life in old Russia reveals itself. The soft rituals people followed before sleep. These small, gentle habits were more than routine. They were a way of calming the mind, warming the body, and reminding the heart that the long day was over. Imagine stepping outside for a moment. The air is cold but not harsh. It wraps around you like cool silk. The snowflakes fall slowly, drifting sideways in the faint evening wind. Everything is so still it feels like the world is whispering rather than speaking. A few villagers move quietly through the snow, finishing their last tasks. One man closes the wooden shutters on his window, A woman shakes hay from her apron, sending soft clouds of it into the frosty night air. Even the footsteps in the snow sound muted, as if the earth has covered itself with a blanket. Now let's step back inside a warm home, where families finish their final moments before bed. The dim light from a single oil lamp paints everything in golden shadows. People speak in hushed tones as if respecting the silence settling over the village. In one corner, a young girl folds her wool shawl carefully, smoothing it with her hands before placing it on a wooden chest. She does it the same way every night, slow, thoughtful, gentle. Her movements are calm enough to make your own breathing slow down. Nearby, her mother pours warm water into a clay bowl. Steam rises softly from the surface, carrying a scent of dried herbs that were collected in the summer. Mint, chamomile, maybe a little thyme. The mother dips a cloth into the warm water and presses it gently against her face, letting the warmth melt away the day's cold. A simple act, but it brings such peace. People in old Russia believed warmth kept the spirit calm, so moments like these mattered. A warm drink, a warm cloth, a warm stove. All simple things, all soothing. Across the room, a father places a carved wooden cup next to his sleeping spot. He carved it himself years ago, smoothing each curve with patient hands. To him, the cup isn't just an object. It's a reminder of home, of family, of stability in a world that could often be difficult. Small comforts meant everything. And then there were prayers. Not loud, not strict, not heavy. Just soft whispers spoken near the little icon hanging on the wall. A mother might whisper, "Protect my home, and bring calm to the night." A father might add, "Let tomorrow be gentle." Their voices are quiet enough that you almost don't hear them, blending into the warm air of the room. Even if someone didn't believe deeply, the act itself brought peace. A moment to breathe, to think, to release worries into the soft darkness. The children, drowsy from firelight and stories, climb onto their beds made of straw and wool. You can hear the quiet rustle of hay as they settle in. A small cat curls up near their feet, its tiny breath rising and falling like a lullaby. Outside, the wind brushes along the wooden walls. Not strong, just enough to remind you that nature is out there, watching over everything. The family lies down, pulling blankets up to their chins. The final sound before silence is the gentle crackle of the stove. A pop, a sigh, a soft glow. Slowly the house drifts toward dreams. And as we stand in the middle of this peaceful room, John, you can feel that familiar warmth spreading inside you too. The kind that makes your eyes grow heavy. The kind that makes your thoughts slow down. Old Russia didn't give people an easy life, but in the quiet moments before sleep, they found a sweetness that even hardship couldn't take away. As the night grows deeper, we step into another quiet corner of life in old Russia. The world of simple hopes and gentle dreams. Even in a land full of hardship, people carried wishes inside them. Soft ones, warm ones. The kind you whisper to yourself when the world is dark and still. Imagine the village now, John. Almost everyone is asleep. The snow has slowed its fall, drifting in tiny flakes that glow faintly in the moonlight. The houses look like small wooden islands in a sea of white, each one holding a family inside, resting after a long, cold day. Inside one of those homes, a young boy lies awake for a moment, staring at the flickering shadows on the ceiling. His breath makes little clouds in the cool air. He thinks about the future, not loudly, not with big dreams, but softly, like someone holding a small candle in both hands. He wishes he could one day own a warm coat. He wishes his parents had less work. He wishes he could see the big river in the spring, when the ice melts like glass breaking. Small dreams, but they keep his heart warm. Near him, his older sister sleeps soundly, her hair spread over the pillow like a soft blanket. Before closing her eyes, she whispered her own hope, that the summer harvest will be better this year, so the family can rest a little more and worry a little less. Her dreams are gentle, slow, and filled with sunlight she hasn't seen in months. Their parents lie beside the stove, wrapped in heavy blankets. They are tired, the kind of tired that settles into the bones. But even they carry quiet wishes. A mother might hope for good health. A father might hope for strong horses, both hoping their children will have fewer struggles than they did. These dreams, they are simple, but they're powerful. They are the soft light that kept people warm inside, even when the world outside was cold and unkind. Let's walk outside again for a moment. The wind is slow. The moon sits high and pale above the snowy roofs. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once and then falls silent again. You can almost hear the village breathing. In and out, steady and slow. Everyone is holding their own quiet dream inside their sleep. Some dream of warm bread. Some dream of sunlight on the fields. Some dream of a bigger house one day, even if it's only a little bigger. People in old Russia didn't have much, John, but they had imagination. And imagination was a way to escape the cold, even for a few moments. As the night stretches on, those gentle dreams swirl through the dark like tiny sparks. Warm, flickering, fragile, and beautiful. They dance above the sleeping village, like floating fireflies made of hope. And standing there with the whole village asleep around you, you feel something soft settling inside your own chest too. A little warmth, a little peace, a little reminder that even in the hardest times, people always find something to hope for. Take a slow breath. The night has grown deeper now. And inside an old wooden home in ancient Russia, a small gentle light still glows. It isn't from a lamp, and it isn't from a candle. It is the soft, warm glow of a clay stove, where a slow, steady fire continues to breathe. The air inside the house is warm, but the cold outside is sharp enough to leave thin white lines of frost along the wooden window frame. Most of the family is preparing for sleep, but there is one last part of the day that brings comfort to everyone. The night meal, simple, warm, and made for quiet rest. John, now imagine it slowly. A small wooden table, scratched, old, familiar. Its surface is worn from years of use, but tonight it holds a warm meal that fills the room with calm. At the center of the table sits a large clay pot of steaming kasha, a warm porridge made from grains. This was one of the most common foods in old Russia. The kasha looks slightly golden, and its smell rises gently into the air, soft and comforting, like flour lightly roasting on a calm fire. Beside it, another pot rests near the stove. Inside is shchi, a simple cabbage soup that families ate almost every day. The soup is warm, a little sour, softened with slices of carrot, thin pieces of cabbage, and only sometimes, if the family was lucky, a small piece of meat. For poor families, meat was rare, so even the smell of it, floating gently through the house, felt like a tiny holiday. Near the edge of the table lies a loaf of dark rye bread, hard on the outside, but when dipped into hot soup, it turns soft, warm, and perfect. Steam rises from the bread, like a slow breath in winter, the same way steam rises from a warm cup of tea. Close to the stove, there is a small pot of warm milk, almost ready to form a thin cream on top. There were no refrigerators, no chilled drinks. Warm milk was a nightly comfort. Sometimes, if the family was a little fortunate, they would scoop the cream and mix it into the kasha, turning it soft and rich. The last part of the meal was simple but precious. Baked apples, common, inexpensive, but when the sweet smell filled the home, children would smile even on the coldest nights. Just an apple, a bit of heat, and sometimes a drop of honey, and a gentle dessert was ready. Now imagine it fully, John. The whole family sits around the table. The floor is warm near the stove. Their clothes still hold the chill of the outside, but the room around them glows with comfort. Wooden spoons tap softly on clay bowls. Steam curls upward in slow waves. The soup moves quietly as it is stirred. The fire crackles gently in the stove. Not loud, just a small comforting sound. Outside, the wind pushes against the house, cold and restless, but inside, the warmth of food, the glow of fire, and the closeness of family make the night peaceful. When the meal ends, they do not wash the dishes right away. They place the clay pots near the stove to keep the food warm, because in the morning, when the cold bites hardest, the leftover kasha becomes breakfast. These meals were not expensive, not luxurious, not fancy, but they brought calm, warmth, and a quiet happiness that helped people sleep deeply after long, difficult days. As the warm night meal comes to an end, the house grows quiet again. The fire inside the clay stove has softened into a gentle orange glow, no longer burning high, but breathing slowly, like a calm, steady heartbeat within the wooden walls of the home. Outside, the cold Russian night presses softly against the house. The wind brushes past the roof, carrying the faint, distant cry of a night bird somewhere in the forest. But inside, everything feels peaceful, as if the world has slowed down just for a moment. Now imagine this scene. The family begins preparing for sleep. There are no bright electric lights, no switches, no buzzing screens, no glowing clocks. Only the dim, warm breathing of the stove lights the room. The shadows it creates dance slowly across the walls, stretching and shrinking. As the fire inside hums quietly, the mother moves gently across the room, her feet making soft sounds against the wooden floor. She checks the stove, makes sure it is safe, and closes the small iron door to keep the warmth inside for the long winter night ahead. Near the corner of the room lies a thick bundle of straw, covered with wool blankets. This is the bed for the younger children. It isn't soft like modern beds, but after a long day of working, walking, and braving the cold, it feels like a small piece of comfort. One by one, the children settle down onto the straw. Their blankets are heavy and warm, made from sheep's wool that holds heat even on the coldest nights. Their breaths begin to slow. Their eyes blink softly in the dim, flickering light. In another part of the room, the father lays out a thin mattress filled with dried grass. He spreads an old quilt over it, patches sewn from older clothes, each piece holding a story from years before. The air inside the home smells warmly of baked bread, soft smoke, and wooden beams that have held many winters. As the night deepens further, the family shares a few quiet words. There is no rush, no pressure, just slow, gentle conversation. about the weather, the day's small moments, or something simple they noticed earlier. The voices are soft, barely above a whisper, as if the house itself is listening calmly. When talking fades away, the final sounds of the night begin to settle. The stove crackles its last few embers. A bowl is placed on the table with a soft tap. A blanket rustles. Someone exhales slowly, their breath warm in the quiet air. Now imagine the gentlest detail of all. Most homes in old Russia had one very special sleeping space, the top of the clay stove. It was warm, soft with blankets, and high above the cold floor. Often the grandmother or grandfather slept there, their bodies warmed through the night by the quiet heat of the stove. You can almost see it. A small wooden ladder, old, slightly wobbly, leaning against the side of the stove. The elder climbs it slowly, carefully, with practiced steps that come from a lifetime of habit. They reach the top, lay their back against the warm clay, and exhale a long, peaceful breath as the heat surrounds them like a gentle embrace. This warmth was not luxury, it was survival. It kept bones from aching, joints from stiffening, and hearts from feeling the full bite of a Russian winter. Below, the rest of the family drifts slowly into sleep. The children's breaths become steady. The parents settle under their blankets, wrapping themselves tightly to hold in the heat. The wooden house creaks softly as it cools. The fire settles into a low hum. Frost forms gently on the windows, creating thin silver patterns, like frozen flowers, drawn by the night. And in this soft, quiet, peaceful darkness, the family sleeps, together, warm, safe from the cold beyond their walls. Nothing loud, nothing fast. Just the slow rhythm of simple old Russian life, winding down as the world grows still. As the deep Russian night settles fully over the countryside, a stillness covers everything like a soft blanket. The villagers have finished their work, their meals and their quiet conversations, and now the entire world seems to pause. Outside, the snow glows faintly under the moonlight, turning the fields into wide, pale sheets of silver. The forests stand completely motionless, tall black silhouettes rising into the sky, holding in the cold silence of the winter. Every tree, every branch, every wooden fence appears frozen in time, as if the world itself is taking a long, peaceful breath before drifting into its own slumber. Inside the wooden homes, warmth becomes the most precious thing. The stove holds the last of the fire, its brick still radiating a soft and comforting heat. The air carries gentle scents of baked rye bread, dried herbs hung near the door, and smoke that has slowly faded after hours of burning. The mixture of warmth, quiet, and familiar smells creates a feeling of safety that wraps around the family like an invisible quilt. The home is dim, with only a faint glow slipping out from the stove's shutter. The shadows stretch across the room like long, slow-moving shapes that have nowhere to be. The only sounds are soft, the quiet creak of the wooden beams adjusting to the night's cold, the faint whistle of wind slipping between the logs of the wall, and the steady breathing of those who have already drifted into sleep. This gentle orchestra of night sounds becomes a lullaby all on its own. Many families in old Russia shared a single room, and because of this, nights created a unique kind of closeness. Parents slept near their children, able to hear their shifting, their dreaming breaths, the small sighs that came with falling deeper into sleep. When someone moved or turned over, the sound was soft and familiar, becoming part of the natural rhythm of the room. There was comfort in that, togetherness and a silent reassurance that no one faced the cold night alone. Even the animals played a role in the night's quiet harmony. If the home had a cat, it would curl up near the stove, its body stretched long across a warm stone. Sometimes it would purr quietly, the steady vibration blending with the soft ambience of the house. Outside, a horse might shift inside the barn, the straw rustling under its hooves. A cow might exhale a warm breath into the cold air, creating a cloud of fog that disappeared almost instantly. These distant, muffled sounds reminded the family that life continued gently all around them, even in the still darkness. As the hours moved slowly toward midnight, the cold outside deepened. Frost spread across the windows in delicate patterns, creating shapes that looked like feathers, leaves, or frozen rivers branching across the glass. Children often fell asleep watching these shapes form, imagining they were magical drawings made by winter spirits. Sometimes the wind would rise gently and sweep across the village, brushing snow from the roofs and carrying it softly through the air. But even the wind felt unhurried, as if it too was respecting the nighttime calm. The night was long during winter, and people learned to welcome it. They accepted that darkness came early and lasted many hours, and instead of fearing it, they used it to rest deeply. In these quiet moments, the world of work, chores, and responsibility faded. The mind slowed. Thoughts became simple and soft. The heart settled into a peaceful rhythm that matched the stillness outside. Older villagers often said that winter nights were a gift, a time when the land slept and encouraged people to do the same. They believed that long nights healed the body, softened the spirit, and helped life begin fresh each morning. And in these hours, when everything was silent except for the soft crack of the cooling stove and the slow breathing of a sleeping family, it was easy to understand why. The darkness was not frightening. It was gentle. It held the house like a cocoon, protecting it from the harsh cold and keeping the warmth inside alive until dawn. Inside this protective calm, dreams felt deeper, thoughts felt lighter, and time itself seemed to fade away. Toward the very late hours of the night, when the moon reached its highest point in the sky, something special happened inside the home. A deep sacred silence settled, and the kind of silence that ancient villagers believed belonged only to winter. This silence was thick, still, and almost warm. It wrapped itself around every corner of the house, slipping between blankets, resting on the wooden floor, and settling over the sleeping bodies of the family. It was the kind of silence that made even the smallest sound, a breath, a sigh, a faint movement, feel meaningful, soft, and connected to the rhythm of the world beyond the walls. In this long, uninterrupted quiet, the home felt timeless. Generations before had slept like this, and generations after would sleep the same way. There was nothing urgent, nothing loud, nothing rushing forward. It was a world paused, resting, and gently waiting for the first light of morning. As the night stretches deeper into the early morning hours, you begin to understand why winters in old Russia were not only peaceful, but also quietly difficult. Life moved slowly because it had to. The cold outside was not just a season, it was a presence, a weight that shaped every habit, every routine, and every decision people made. The snow piled high along the rooftops, building heavier with each passing storm, while thick layers of ice clung to the rivers and the edges of wooden homes. The world seemed frozen solid, but beneath all this stillness lived a quiet struggle for warmth, food, and endurance that shaped the daily rhythm of every family. Inside the home, the stove remained the heart of survival. If it burned too low, the cold crept in almost instantly, nipping at fingers and toes. reminding everyone how unforgiving the winter could be. Villagers often woke once in the middle of the night just to check the fire, adding a small piece of wood or adjusting the draft to keep the heat alive until dawn. It wasn't a chore, it was a necessary act of care, almost a gentle ritual that kept the home safe. The glow from the stove would flicker softly against the wooden walls, stretching shadows that moved like slow, sleepy spirits, silently watching over the family resting nearby. Food during these winters was simple but precious. Every bite mattered. There were no fresh vegetables, no fruits, no fields to harvest from. Instead, shelves held jars of dried berries, pickled cabbage, and smoked fish carefully stored months earlier. Bread was baked from dark, heavy flour, filling the home with its rich smell and offering warmth from within. Some nights, families shared a thick soup made from potatoes and herbs, eaten slowly, each spoonful a reminder of the effort it took to gather and save, enough to last through the long, cold months. These meals were not grand, yet they carried a deep sense of gratitude. People learned to appreciate every flavor, every crumb, every simple comfort the winter allowed. Outside, the animals needed care as well. Horses, cows, and goats relied entirely on the feed collected during the warmer seasons. A villager might step into the barn before sunrise, the lantern glowing softly in the icy darkness, illuminating clouds of warm breath rising from the animals. The barn smelled of hay, earth, and the faint sweetness of stored grain. It was warmer than the outside world, but still cold enough that every movement was slow and deliberate. Even caring for animals became an act of endurance and love, a quiet agreement between humans and creatures who faced the winter together. Winter nights were long, but winter days were not much brighter. The sun rose lazily behind thick gray clouds, offering a brief and pale light that felt almost dreamlike. Villagers wrapped themselves in layers of wool, fur, and linen just to step outside. Their breaths floated as soft white clouds, fading as quickly as they appeared. Work outside the house was limited, chopping wood, fetching water, checking traps, or mending fences. Every task took double the effort in the cold, and even the strongest hands could become numb within moments. Yet the people carried on, their movements steady and patient, accepting that winter demanded a slower pace from everyone. Children found small joys even in the harshest days. They played on frozen ponds, sliding across the surface with laughter that echoed through the silent air. Their cheeks turned red from the cold, their scarves fluttering behind them like small flags of the season. They didn't worry about the challenges of winter. They saw only the magic of snow, the beauty of frost, and the thrill of creating shapes in the ice-covered ground. These small moments of joy brought warmth to the entire village, reminding everyone that even the hardest winters held pieces of quiet happiness. As evening came again, families gathered close, sitting near the stove or around a wooden table lit by a single candle. Someone might tell a story of old legends, heroes who lived in forests, rivers that slept under thick ice, spirits who guarded snowy paths. The words were soft and slow, blending with the flickering candlelight to create a warm cocoon of imagination. Even the elders, who knew the hardest truths of winter, found comfort in these stories. They listened with their eyes half closed, letting the slow rhythms of speech calm their minds and ease the weight of survival from their hearts. And when night finally returned, long, deep, and quiet, and the home once again became a sanctuary from the cold. Blankets were pulled close, bodies nestled near one another, and the last glow of the stove painted gentle golden reflections across the walls. The world outside might be frozen, but inside the home, a quiet strength lived in every breath, every whisper, every shared moment of rest. In these hours, the struggle of winter softened. The hard edges of daily survival smoothed into a peaceful stillness, giving everyone a chance to breathe, to dream, and to gather strength for another day. It was in this balance and between hardship and calm, between cold winds and warm hearths, that the people of old Russia lived their winters. They endured, they rested, and they found beauty even in the thickest snow. As we move deeper into the world of old Russia, imagine the evening settling gently over a small wooden village. The sun has dipped behind the distant trees, leaving a faint pink glow fading slowly into a deep blue sky. The air outside is cold enough that even the slightest breeze feels sharp on the skin. But inside the homes, a warm, glowing quiet begins to form. It is the hour when work is set aside, tools are rested, and the soft hum of family life takes over. The stove, always the center of the room, gives off a steady warmth that fills every corner. Its gentle crackle becomes a kind of music, a slow, calming rhythm that everyone grows accustomed to. Shadows stretch softly along the walls, moving like delicate brushstrokes painted by the flicker of fire. This is the time when people gather not out of duty, but out of a need for connection, comfort, and the small, peaceful moments that end a long day. In many homes, an elder would begin a story. Their voice was usually slow and deep, shaped by years of winters, summers, and countless memories. The story would not be rushed. Every word was placed carefully like a stone in a quiet river. Children leaned closer, wrapped in layers of blankets, their eyes reflecting the firelight. Adults sat nearby, relaxing their tired hands and letting their minds drift gently with the tale. These stories were not always grand or full of adventure. Sometimes they spoke of simple things: a river spirit who guarded the fishermen, a wise forest woman who knew the secrets of herbs, a traveling merchant who brought strange spices to the village long ago. Each story carried pieces of history, belief, and imagination, woven together in a way that soothed the heart and softened the weight of the day. Occasionally, someone would hum an old folk tune, a low, drifting melody that blended perfectly with the quiet of the evening. It might be a mother rocking a child, or a grandfather tapping his fingers lightly on the arm of a wooden chair as he hummed. These songs were simple, often only a few notes, but they carried feelings of home, warmth, and an unspoken promise that no matter how hard life was outside, the inside of the home would always remain a place of comfort. The melody settled into the room like a soft blanket, calming everyone without needing any words. Sometimes families shared memories, stories of ancestors, old traditions, or moments of kindness that had stayed with them for years. People spoke softly, knowing that loud voices had no place in these peaceful evenings. A father might talk about how he learned to plow the fields from his own father, or a grandmother might recall the first winter she survived as a young bride, learning how to keep the stove warm through the night. These moments of reflection brought generations together, binding the family in a quiet, old rhythm that had lasted through centuries of hardships and joys. There was comfort in these shared memories, a reminder that people before them had faced the same cold, the same work, the same winters, and had endured with strength and grace. Outside, the world was silent. Snow softened every sound, turning the village into a quiet island of white. The wind blew gently around corners and rooftops, but even its voice seemed hushed, as if respecting the stillness inside the homes. The moon often rose bright against the dark sky, lighting up the snow so it shimmered softly like powdered silver. It was a peaceful beauty, not dramatic, not loud, just a calm reminder of the vastness of nature surrounding the small, warm circles of light scattered across the village. Inside, someone might slowly prepare a warm drink, Perhaps a cup of hot berry infusion or a simple herbal mixture meant to relax the body after a long day. The smell drifted through the room, comforting and familiar. Hands wrapped around the warm cups, savoring the heat, the softness of each sip, and the feeling of calm settling deeper into their bones. Even small comforts like this were treasured, because in the world of old Russia, warmth was not just physical, it was emotional, shared, and deeply meaningful. As the evening grew quieter, conversations became softer, and eventually the room slipped into a peaceful hush. The fire dimmed to a gentle glow, flickering in slow waves. People settled into their beds of straw and linen, pulling blankets up to their chins, listening to the final fading sound of wood gently settling in the stove. It was a moment of stillness, a pause between days, where the worries of tomorrow had not yet arrived, and the exhaustion of today slowly drifted away. Old Russia held these evenings like a tender secret, moments where the world felt softer, and life, even with all its difficulties, seemed gentle again. It was in these long, quiet nights that families found strength for the next day, comfort in each other's presence, and a peace that came not from luxury, but from simplicity. As winter settled deeper into old Russia, the world beyond the village changed its rhythm completely. The roads that were once muddy and uneven during summer became firm, smooth paths of packed snow. Travel, which had been difficult in warmer seasons, suddenly became easier in its own quiet, frozen way. People prepared sledges instead of carts, layering them with thick furs to protect travelers from the sharp cold. The sound of horses' hooves softened under the blanket of snow, turning every journey into a slow, almost silent glide across the white landscape. Travelers moved carefully, wrapped in multiple layers of wool and leather, their breaths forming small clouds that disappeared into the icy air. There was a strange, gentle beauty in these journeys, the kind where the world felt still, patient, and calm. The forests on both sides of the road stood tall and unmoving, their branches heavy with snow. They looked like old guardians watching over the travelers, whispering faint secrets whenever the wind passed through. Sometimes the wind carried a long, low whistle that echoed between the trees, not frightening but haunting in a peaceful way, a reminder that nature was immense, eternal and far older than the villages scattered across it. Travelers knew these sounds well. They did not fear them. Instead, they accepted them as part of the journey, part of the atmosphere that made winter travel feel almost like stepping into another world, entirely in a world quiet, slow, and timeless. Occasionally one might pass a lonely traveler heading in the opposite direction. Greetings were short, spoken through scarves and muffled by the thick layers wrapped around their faces. A nod, a gesture of the hand, or a simple, safe journey was enough. On these silent roads, words were not needed. The shared experience of cold, distance, and purpose was communication in itself. And once the travelers passed each other, the silence returned, settling back over the landscape like a soft blanket. The horses, strong and patient, moved steadily forward. Their warm breaths rose like steam, catching the faint light of the pale winter sun. The bells attached to their harnesses jingled quietly, not loud or sharp, but soft and rhythmic, blending perfectly with the peaceful surroundings. These bells were not just decoration, they were a tradition, believed to chase away loneliness on long roads and to bring good fortune to the travelers. The gentle ringing created a comforting rhythm, almost like a lullaby for the journey, making the miles feel softer than they truly were. Along the roadside, small wooden shrines dedicated to saints or old protective spirits stood, half buried in the snow. Travelers often stopped for a moment, bowing their heads or offering a simple thought of gratitude before continuing. These shrines represented hope, reminders that even in the most isolated stretches of land, people had left behind traces of faith, kindness, and guidance for anyone passing through. They were small, quiet anchors in the vast winter landscape, offering a sense of connection in places where the world otherwise felt wide and empty. As the sledge continued forward, the sun moved slowly across the sky, never rising too high during winter. The daylight itself felt calm, almost shy, casting long blue shadows across the snow. The sky often stayed pale, sometimes nearly white, blending with the ground until the horizon disappeared completely. It was a peaceful illusion, as if the earth and sky had become one single, endless sheet of quiet winter. On some days, snowflakes drifted down gently, not in storms but in a slow, graceful dance that covered the travelers in a light dusting of cold stars. The snowflakes melted softly on their clothes and eyelashes, adding a tender beauty to the long journey. When evening approached, travelers looked for small roadside inns, known for their warm stoves, simple meals, and heavy wooden doors that kept out the cold winds. Inside, the air was thick with warmth and the scent of stew simmering in large iron pots. Tired travelers removed their layers, feeling the relief of heat return to their fingers and toes. They shared quiet conversations with strangers, speaking in low voices so as not to disturb the peacefulness of the room. Stories of distant towns, lost family members, old legends, and winter miracles floated between the tables, adding human warmth to the cold night outside. After eating, travelers would find a place to rest. Sometimes a shared wooden bed lined with straw, sometimes a corner near the stove where they could curl up under thick blankets. The steady hum of crackling wood filled the room, lulling people into sleep. Outside, the wind continued to move across the landscape, whispering along the frozen roads, but inside the inn, everything remained calm, warm, and safe. These nights on winter journeys became memories people carried for years, the kind that reminded them that, even in the coldest moments, warmth and kindness could always be found on the road. Winter travel in old Russia was not fast or easy, but it had a quiet dignity, a peaceful rhythm, and a comforting sense of presence. It was a reminder that life, even when slowed by cold and distance, could still be gentle, meaningful, and connected by small acts of warmth shared between strangers and friends.